Somewhere in your first 3 years of life, you learn to walk. You learn to recognize your mother's face in a crowded room. You learned the sound of your own name. And you remember none of it. Not a single frame. Not one moment. That should feel strange too. It doesn't, because you've never had a childhood memory to miss. But the real answer for why those years vanished is far stranger than simple forgetting. Your brain wasn't broken during those years. It worked exactly as it was built to work. Think about what you do remember. Maybe a birthday from when you were 5. Maybe a scraped knee from kindergarten. Rarely anything before the age of 3 or 4. Scientists call this infantile amnesia, and the term isn't new. Sigmund Freud noticed it over a century ago, though his explanation involved repressed desires and has not held up well. The real explanation took almost 100 more years to arrive, and it has nothing to do with repression at all. Here's the first surprise. Babies can absolutely remember things. Newborns just hours old can recognize their mother's voice over a stranger's. By 6 months, infants can remember a toy they played with weeks earlier. Psychologist Carolyn Rovee-Collier proved this with a clever experiment. She tied a ribbon from an infant's ankle to a mobile hanging above the crib. The baby kicked. The mobile moved. Within minutes, babies learned that kicking made the mobile dance. And weeks later, when placed back under that same mobile, they started kicking immediately. Memory was there, clearly, unmistakably there. So if infants can remember, why can't you remember being one? The answer lies in a part of your brain called the hippocampus. Think of it as your brain's filing cabinet, the structure responsible for taking a moment you've just lived through and converting it into a memory you can pull out later. In an adult, that filing cabinet is fully built, with drawers and folders and a working index system. In an infant, it's still under construction. The walls are up, but the shelves aren't installed yet. Neuroscientists Paul Frankland and Josselyn studied this directly in mice, whose brains developed through similar stages. Their 2014 research found that infant mice actually generate new brain cells in the hippocampus at an extremely high rate, and it's this rapid neurogenesis, ironically, that may be wiping memories out. New neurons wiring themselves into an already active network can overwrite the connections that older memories depend on. Your brain wasn't failing to save anything. It was building itself so aggressively that it kept erasing the files as fast as it created them. That's an odd thing to sit with, isn't it? The very process that made you smarter also made you forget. But neurogenesis is only half the story. The other half is language, and this one is easy to test on yourself. Try to remember something from before you could speak in full sentences. Can you? Probably not, and there's a reason. Memory, especially the kind you can consciously recall and describe, seems to depend heavily on language as scaffolding. Developmental psychologist Patricia Bauer has spent decades researching how memory develops in early childhood, and her work shows that children don't just need to experience an event to remember it later. They need the words to encode it. A toddler who witnesses something remarkable but has no vocabulary for time, sequence, or cause and effect has no way to file that memory in a form their older self can retrieve. The experience happened. The label never got attached. Picture a librarian handed thousands of books with no titles, no authors, no subject categories. She could still shelve them somewhere, but good luck finding any specific one again. That's roughly what your 2-year-old brain was doing with your early life, storing without labeling. Here's where it gets stranger still. Some of your childhood memories might not even be memories. Psychologist Elizabeth Loftus, famous for her work on false memory, has shown just how easily the human mind can construct a vivid, detailed memory of an event that never happened, especially when that memory is reinforced by photos or family stories repeated over the years. That memory of your third birthday party might not be a memory at all. It might just be a mental image stitched together from a photograph you've seen 50 times, colored in by your imagination until it feels exactly like something you lived through. Doesn't that unsettle you a little? The past you think you remember earliest may be the past you're least sure actually happened the way you picture it. Now, step back and think about what this means for who you are today. You walk through the world assuming your identity started somewhere you can point to, a first memory, a beginning. But the truth is, your personality, your instincts, your attachment style, the way you react to strangers, or to comfort, or to fear, all of that was shaped in the years you cannot access. Those blank years weren't empty, they were the foundation. You were being built the entire time, and the construction crew simply didn't leave you the blueprints. There's something almost humbling in that. The person you are right now was assembled largely by a version of you that left no notes. And this isn't just ancient history playing out. Once in your toddler years, something similar happens every single day of your adult life, just on a smaller scale. Ever walk into a room and forget why you went in? Ever fail to remember most of yesterday's commute, or what you ate for lunch 3 Tuesdays ago? Your adult brain still filters ruthlessly, deciding in real time what deserves a folder in that filing cabinet and what gets discarded before it's ever properly stored. The mechanism that erased your entire infancy hasn't disappeared. It's just been dialed down, quietly trimming your days the same way it once erased your years. So the next time you look at an old photo of yourself as a toddler, someone smiling at a camera, holding a toy, standing in a kitchen that no longer exists in that same form, remember this: that child is you, biologically, undeniably you, and yet you are a stranger to their world. You'll never walk back into that kitchen the way they experienced it. You only have the photograph and the story someone else told you about the photograph. Consider how different this is from every other kind of learning you did as a toddler. You learned to walk, and your body kept that skill forever, tucked away in muscle memory that needs no retrieval, no story, no timestamp. You learned language, and those words became the very tools you now use to think. Procedural memory, the how-to kind, survived the wipe completely intact. It was episodic memory, the what happened kind, that got erased. Your brain seems to have made a quiet decision somewhere in your infancy. Keep the skills, discard the diary. Why would evolution build a brain that works this way? It sounds almost wasteful, doesn't it? To hand a person years of experience and then shred the file. But consider what an infant actually needs from its brain in those first months. Not a stable archive, a rapidly rewiring machine capable of absorbing an entirely new sensory world, a new language, a new set of faces, a new gravity to balance against. Stability and flexibility are, in a sense, opposites. A hippocampus optimized for lifelong storage would be a worse tool for the explosive moment-to-moment rewiring an infant brain has to do just to make sense of light, sound, and its own limbs. You couldn't have both. Nature picked flexibility first, and memory came later, once the foundation was poured. There's a comparison that might make this easier to hold on to. Think about renovating an old house while people are still living in it. Walls come down, wiring gets pulled out and replaced. Rooms that existed on Monday are gone by Thursday, rebuilt into something new. Nobody expects the house to keep a photographic record of every stud and pipe from that chaotic renovation period. What matters is the finished structure, solid enough now to hold memories that will actually last. Your first 3 years were that renovation. Loud, disorganized, absolutely essential, and never meant to be filed away as finished rooms. This also explains something curious about when your first memory tends to show up. Ask most adults for their earliest memory, and it usually lands somewhere between the ages of 3 and 4. Ask children the same question a few years apart, and something odd happens. A 5-year-old might describe a memory from age 2 that a 9-year-old, once they've grown older, can no longer access at all. The memory didn't vanish overnight. It faded gradually, the way old ink fades on paper left in sunlight, as the developing hippocampus kept reorganizing itself and older, poorly indexed files kept losing their last remaining threads. And this reorganizing never stops. It just slows down. Ask yourself honestly, how much of last month could you narrate in detail if someone asked? Probably far less than you'd expect. Your adult brain is still quietly editing, compressing, and discarding using the exact same instinct that once erased your entire early childhood, just working at a gentler pace on the raw material of your daily life. The girl who forgot her second birthday and the adult who can't quite remember what she had for dinner last Wednesday are running the same software. Some researchers even argue this trade-off keeps happening quietly across your whole life, not just in infancy. Every time you learn something genuinely new, a language, an instrument, a new city streets, your brain has to make room. Old, less useful connections get pruned to make space for the new ones. You are, in a very real sense, still that same renovating house, just with fewer walls coming down at once. So maybe the right way to think about your missing years isn't as a mystery to solve, but as a kind of quiet gift you never noticed you were given. Somewhere in that fog, a person was assembled who could recognize faces, understand language, walk across the room, love the people who loved them back. If this is the first time you've ever thought about your own missing years this way, that's worth sitting with for a second. Drop a comment and tell me the earliest thing you can actually remember and see how far back it really goes. And if your brain just got a little rewired watching this, hit like before you keep going. All of that infrastructure still running underneath everything you do today was built during the exact stretch of time you can never revisit. You weren't robbed of those years. You were made by them. Somewhere in your first 3 years of life, you learned to walk, learned to face, learned your own name, and you remember none of it. Now you finally know why. Not because those years didn't matter, but because they mattered too much to leave as memories. Your brain wasn't losing your childhood. It was spending it every single day to build the person reading and listening to these words right now.